Let's talk about the donations. What have you been able to learn about a deeper dive into those donations and, frankly, how coordinated these so-called independents were?
Absolutely. Look, I love Declaration Day because it simply reveals what I already know, and that is that these independents are not independents. They are funded by, they are backed by big business, big money, big campaigns. And while traditionally independents are viewed as, well, independent, not having strings attached to a party, major or otherwise, these guys do indeed have strings attached, and if and when they make it to the federal chamber, the people who bought their seat for them basically come cashing their chips in. So yeah, basically independents, not so independent, and it's all revealed when we look at where their campaign funds came from.
But also there's this thing, and look, again, I just talk about it as an example of how the system works, right, which is this Climate 200 Proprietary Limited Group. Now, this is a group where it donated an awful lot of money across all of these different candidates, but we don't necessarily know about everyone who put money into that particular fund. I repeat, nothing illegal about all of this, but how do you explain how something like that works? Because it didn't exist. I mean, the ASIC filings are there that it only appeared in April and it was giving money all the way up to just a day before the election.
Absolutely. So these guys are quite organised. Even to this day, we don't know all that much about Climate 200. We know that it was founded by the son of Australia's first billionaire. We know that he's backed by another billionaire. And basically, all we can really say authoritatively is that it's a group of very wealthy people who are very concerned about the climate, putting their money into the pockets of those candidates that they believe are going to push the climate alarmist agenda.
Well, the truth is, look, we believe in free speech, so I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't have the right to give money. I just believe in absolute declaration, including I think we should know about every single person. I think we should know about all of those small donors that are around there. Not because it's a way of hunting people down, but it's just about clarity. Because you know, we know that basically, you know, you can still give a reasonable amount of money to a candidate and not end up on the radar, and that, as you say, can have other consequences. But also, these people turn around and again pretend to be so much more pure than established political parties. But as you say, the big money, and when you compare this to 3 years earlier, only 2 independents were in the top 5 of personal donations, and the number 1 didn't even make it halfway up the list for 2019.
Yeah, so we've seen a huge difference, a huge rise in this trend, and Climate 200 haven't been backward in coming forward about the fact that they fully intend to be back in 2022, making sure that they are pouring money not only into independent candidates, but those in the major parties who they believe will push this agenda. And like you've said, that's not a crime. Everyone supports causes and candidates that support their causes close to their hearts. Not a crime at all, but I find it telling when those, like you say, call themselves independents, are revealed to be not quite so independent at all.
Now, we talked about this in the last hour, but let's talk about the absurdity of the Australian version of the deep state. And people will think, there they are, 2 right-wingers talking conspiracy theories on TV. Here's what happened. People who work in the Attorney General's department, the bureaucrats, without the knowledge of the minister, go off and decide that anyone associated with the CPAC conference, let's ding them to declare whether or not they are foreign agents. Now, this is an event that you could buy tickets to, that the media was in and filming, that there was no mystery about. Yet, of course, Queen KK turns around and says, well, you've got to apply the law evenly. You can't just back the causes that you like. So I don't know about you, but I expect Liz KK to be demanding that Please Explain letters are sent to everyone affiliated with Greenpeace in Australia, with Extinction Rebellion in Australia, and with Black Lives Matter in Australia, because they would have exactly the same connections to the CPAC style organisation, which basically means something that exists in America, here's the Australian version of.
Yeah, it's just completely baffling. I think heads should have rolled for this. I think the AG, look, he's come out and expressed a bit of embarrassment, as he should, saying that the legislation isn't to be read that way, etc., and so on. I think someone should have been fired over this. The fact that our PM, former PM, sorry, and the organizer of CPAC was landed with these, this thing carried up to 6 months jail time for, you know, not filling it in and sending it back and doing their bidding. Utterly ridiculous. So I was absolutely delighted to read former Prime Minister Tony Abbott's basically all but flipped them the bird in response. And Andrew Cooper, bless him, wrote back saying, if you guys are legitimately concerned about foreign influence in Australia, don't mean to tell you how to do your job, but a great idea might be to look into the Confucius Institutes in our Australian universities that are openly funded by the People's Liberation Army.
Well, of which, by the way,
that was absolute gold.
Oh, I agree completely. And as well, the universities themselves have admitted publicly in the lefty press that the curriculum is being set by China.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is absolutely unheard of. And yet these 8 bureaucrats, it was 8 of them, that are solely given to this one area, you know, to find these foreign interference, get them registered, etc., and so on. 8 of them were involved before it reached the state that it landed on Andrew Cooper's desk. So you've got to wonder, what on earth are we paying these people for? It's an absolute laughing stock. And if these guys can be raked over the coals for this and sought out by our AG's department for something as ridiculous, I mean, foreign interference. Last I checked, there were 2 Yanks at the conference, 2 Brits at the conference, and last I checked, those 2 countries, some of our greatest allies. So again, just absolutely ridiculous, embarrassing by our AG's department.
Yeah, we're in a thing called Five Eyes with these people. It's the connections are rather obvious. We had a state dinner for our Prime Minister with the President. I think we're pretty connected to the US. We have their Marines in the far north of the country. But, you know, KK, of course, it's all just about making sure everyone's above board. So Greenpeace, Extinction Rebellion, Black Lives Matter, over to you, KK, but I think she'll be somewhat shush about that. Liz, thank you. Continue advancing Australia through the work there. We will keep talking many times in the next little while. Keep the fight going. Good on you, mate.